Welcome to another quick country history from Notebook Summaries. Today, we are diving into the absolutely incredible story of Brunei, a tale of a mighty sea empire, its near total collapse, and then a stunning rebirth driven by a single discovery.
So you have to wonder, right? How does a nation that small, tucked away on the island of Borneo, become one of the richest on the planet? It's a fantastic question, and the answer is a wild ride through centuries of trade, conflict, and one resource that literally changed everything. Let's dig in.
You can really think of this story in three major acts. First, you've got the glorious rise of the Bruneian Empire way back in the 15th century. Then comes the dramatic fall, a long period of colonial decline. And finally, an unbelievable rebirth in the 20th century, all thanks to oil.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with how the empire began, then we'll look at why it fell apart, cover the crucial period under British protection, see how oil fueled its path to independence, and finally, we'll check in on where Brunei is today.
Okay, let's kick things off in the 15th century, what was truly a golden age for Brunei. This is where it goes from just a regional player to a massive empire, but maybe not the kind of empire you're picturing.
So here's the pivotal moment. Before this, Brunei was basically a vassal state to the Hindu Majapahit Empire, but then its ruler converts to Islam. And this was a huge deal. It was a religious and political break that established Brunei as its own powerful, independent sultanate. And that was the launchpad for everything that came next.
And there's a perfect word for the kind of empire Brunei built: a phallocracy. Sounds a bit fancy, right? But it just means an empire of the sea. Their power wasn't about marching armies across land. Nope, it was all about controlling the water, the trade routes, the key ports. A true maritime powerhouse.
And just look at how far that power stretched. In its absolute peak, under Sultan Bolkiah, we're not just talking about the coast of Borneo. The empire reached all the way into the Philippines. They even controlled the area that we now know as Manila. I mean, that is some serious influence. But you know how these stories often go. After hitting such incredible heights, things started to unravel. The empire began a long, slow decline, getting squeezed by problems from the inside and the outside. The first big external threat came from Europe. On one hand, you had the Portuguese, who were mostly just interested in trade. But the Spanish, they were a whole different story. They wanted to expand. They fought Brunei at sea, they snatched Manila away in 1571, and even briefly took over Brunei's capital before, get this, disease forced them out. That conflict really was the beginning of the end for Brunei's power in the Philippines. Then, in the 19th century, things went from bad to worse, and fast. First, a devastating civil war just tore the empire apart from the inside. And who shows up in the middle of that chaos? A British adventurer named James Brooke. He helps the Sultan, and in return, he's made the ruler, the White Rajah of Sarawak. From there, it was a feeding frenzy. Brooke's successors and another British company just kept carving off huge chunks of Brunei, piece by piece, until the once mighty empire was just a shadow of what it once was.
So by the late 1800s, Brunei is literally on the verge of being wiped off the map. The Sultan is backed into a corner and has to make a pretty desperate choice to save what's left.
And this was that choice, the last resort. To stop Sarawak from just swallowing the rest of his kingdom, Sultan Hashim signed the 1888 Treaty of Protection. In effect, he handed over control of Brunei's foreign policy to Britain in exchange for a promise that they would protect its borders.
But that protection, it turned out to be hollow. Just 2 years after the treaty, Sarawak took another vital piece of land, splitting Brunei in two. You can just feel the despair in this quote from the Sultan himself. He signed away his sovereignty for protection that, in the end, never really came.
And right here, when it seems like Brunei's story might be over, something is discovered under the ground that will change its destiny forever. This is the rebirth. 1927. This is the year. This is when they hit oil in Brunei for the first time. And that single discovery of black gold provided the wealth and the strategic importance that allowed Brunei to reverse its decline and rebuild itself from the ground up.
After World War II, under Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin III, that new oil wealth was really put to work. We're talking massive investments, $100 million for infrastructure in the very first development plan, and millions more for education. They were laying the foundations for a truly modern state.
And with all that new economic strength came political momentum. In 1959, Brunei got its first written constitution, which gave it back control over its internal affairs. And then, on January 1, 1984,
the Protectorate Treaty finally ended, and Brunei re-emerged on the world stage as a fully independent nation.
So, after this centuries-long journey of rise, fall, and incredible rebirth, where does Brunei stand here in the 21st century? Well, Brunei immediately joined ASEAN after independence. The oil wealth has transformed it into a developed, industrialized country with the second highest human development index in all of Southeast Asia. Only Singapore is higher. It's a modern nation that also maintains deep traditions, as you can see with the institution of the Islamic Sharia penal code back in 2014.
And this brings us to the final, crucial question. Brunei's modern rebirth was fueled entirely by oil and gas, but those resources won't last forever. So the nation's next great challenge is to diversify its economy and find a new engine for its prosperity, writing the next chapter in a history that's already been filled with so many unbelievable twists and turns. I hope you enjoyed this incredible story of Brunei. If you did, be sure to explore the other explainers in our Quick Country Histories playlist. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Notebook Summaries for more deep dives. Thanks for watching.